Picture this. A man in a wheelchair sits alone in a dimly lit apartment, staring at a dust-covered grand piano. His hands tremble as they hover over the keys. He hasn't touched this instrument in 15 years, not since the accident, not since the night that took everything from him. His name is Elijah Brooks. He's 52 years old, and tonight on his daughter's 16th birthday, she asked him for something he never thought he could give. She didn't ask for a car. She didn't ask for jewelry or a party. She asked for something far more precious. She asked him to play the piano. Just once. But how do you play when you can't feel your legs? How do you create beauty when your body is broken? How do you find music again when the last time you played, the person you loved most in the world was sitting right beside you, and now she's gone? What Elijah doesn't know yet is that tonight will change everything. Not just for him, but for everyone who witnesses what's about to happen. This is a story about loss, about love, about a father's promise, and about discovering that sometimes the things we think are lost forever are simply waiting for us to be brave enough to reach for them again. To understand tonight, you need to understand who Elijah Brooks used to be. 20 years ago, if you mentioned his name in music circles, people's eyes would light up. Elijah Brooks wasn't just a pianist. He was a prodigy, a phenomenon. By the time he was 25, he'd performed at Carnegie Hall 3 times. He'd played for presidents. His albums topped classical music charts. Critics called him the most gifted pianist of his generation. But Elijah never let fame go to his head. He grew up in a small neighborhood in South Philadelphia, raised by his grandmother after his parents passed away when he was just 8 years old. His grandmother worked 2 jobs to pay for his piano lessons. She'd fall asleep in the back of recital halls, exhausted from her shift at the hospital, but she never missed a single performance. "You've got a gift, baby," she'd tell him. And gifts aren't just for keeping, they're for sharing. Elijah carried those words with him everywhere. Even as his career took off, even as he performed in the grandest concert halls in the world, he never forgot where he came from. He'd return to Philadelphia every few months to perform free concerts at community centers. He'd teach piano to kids who couldn't afford lessons. That's where he met Grace. It was a benefit concert in North Philadelphia. Elijah was the headliner, and Grace was the opening act, a local singer with a voice that could make angels weep. The moment Elijah heard her sing, something inside him shifted. After the concert, he found her backstage. "Your voice," he said. "I've never heard anything like it." She smiled. "You're playing. I've never felt anything like it." That was the beginning. Within 6 months, they were married. Within a year, they were touring together. Elijah on piano, Grace singing. They complemented each other perfectly. Where his music was structured and precise, her voice was wild and free. Together, they created something magical. "We're better together than we ever were apart," Grace would say. And it was true. Their life was a dream. They traveled the world. They made music that moved people to tears. And 3 years into their marriage, they had Sophie. Sophie was born with Grace's eyes and Elijah's smile. From the moment she came into the world, their apartment was filled with music. Elijah would play Brahms while Grace rocked Sophie to sleep. They'd sing lullabies in harmony. They'd dance in the kitchen with Sophie giggling between them. One day Grace said, holding baby Sophie while Elijah played, "She's going to love music just as much as we do. We'll teach her." Elijah promised. "We'll show her that music isn't just notes on a page. It's life, it's love, it's everything." He had no idea how soon that promise would be tested. It was a Tuesday night in October. Elijah remembers every detail. The venue was the Kimmel Center in Philadelphia, a homecoming concert. The place was packed. Grace wore a deep blue dress that shimmered under the stage lights. Elijah wore the suit his grandmother had bought him for his first Carnegie Hall performance. The concert was perfect, one of their best. The audience was on their feet before the final note even finished. Backstage, Grace was glowing. Did you feel that she asked her hand in his? That connection with the audience. That was special, Eli. That was really special. Every moment with you is special, he said. They loaded up the car. Sophie was with Elijah's grandmother for the night. The plan was simple. Drive home, order Chinese food, stay up too late, talking about the performance the way they always did. It was raining. Not hard, just a steady drizzle that made the streets gleam under the streetlights. They were on I-76, heading west. Grace was scrolling through her phone, reading the reviews that were already pouring in. She was laughing about something a critic had written. "Listen to this," she started to say. That's when Elijah saw the headlights. A truck, coming the wrong way. Speeding. The driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. Elijah had maybe 2 seconds. He jerked the steering wheel hard to the right, trying to avoid the collision. But there wasn't enough time. There was never going to be enough time. The sound of the impact was like the end of the world. Metal screaming, glass shattering, the car spinning. Elijah's head cracking against something hard. The taste of blood. The smell of gasoline. And Grace's hand slipping from his. Eli, he heard her whisper. Or maybe he imagined it. Eli, I love. Then nothing. Elijah woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed. The first thing he noticed was the pain. It was everywhere, but also nowhere. His head throbbed. His chest felt like it was being crushed. But below his waist, nothing. No sensation at all. His grandmother was sitting beside the bed, her eyes red from crying. The moment she saw him wake up, she stood her hand gripping his. "Elijah," she said, her voice breaking. "Oh, baby, you're awake. Where's Grace?" Those were his first words. "Where's my wife?" His grandmother's face crumbled. That's when Elijah knew. The doctors explained it later using words that didn't feel real. Severe spinal cord injury, paralysis from the waist down. Grace had died on impact. Elijah had been trapped in the wreckage for 40 minutes before they could cut him free. "You're lucky to be alive," one doctor said. Lucky. Elijah didn't feel lucky. He felt like he'd died too, but his body had forgotten to stop. The next weeks were a blur. Physical therapy, learning to use a wheelchair, dealing with insurance companies and funeral arrangements, and a 3-year-old daughter who kept asking where Mommy was. "Mommy's with the angels now," his grandmother told Sophie. "She's singing with them." Sophie didn't understand. How could she? She was 3 years old. But Elijah understood. He understood that the life he'd built was gone. His career, his mobility, his wife. Everything he'd been, everything he'd worked for, had vanished in a single moment on a rainy highway. The piano movers came to his grandmother's house where he was staying during recovery. They wanted to know where to put his Steinway grand piano, the one he'd bought after his first Carnegie Hall performance. "Storage," Elijah said. For how long, they asked. "I don't know. Forever, maybe." His grandmother put her hand on his shoulder. "Elijah, baby, music is who you are." "Music is who I was," he said. "I can't play anymore." "You still have your hands." "I don't have anything," he said. "Not anymore." He never touched a piano again. 15 years passed. Slowly, at first like molasses. Then faster, the way time does when you're just surviving instead of living. Elijah raised Sophie alone. His grandmother helped until she passed away when Sophie was 7. After that, it was just the two of them in a small 2-bedroom apartment in West Philadelphia. Not the glamorous life Elijah had once known, but it was home. He took online work, data entry, bookkeeping, the kind of jobs that don't require a college degree or the ability to walk. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough. Enough for rent, enough for food. Enough for Sophie's school supplies and clothes and the occasional trip to get ice cream. Sophie grew up without really knowing who her father had been. She knew her mother had died in an accident. She knew her father used wheelchair. But the piano, the career, the fame, Elijah never talked about it. There was a grand piano in the corner of their living room covered with a thick cloth. It took up too much space in their small apartment, but Elijah couldn't bring himself to sell it. Sophie asked about it once when she was little. "Why don't you ever play 'Dad, I Can't, Sweetheart'? Because of your legs." Something like that. She never asked again. But Sophie was smart, observant. She'd find old photographs, sometimes tucked in drawers, pictures of her father in a tuxedo on a stage, articles about performances, reviews calling him brilliant. She'd show them to him. "Is this you, Dad?" "That was a long time ago," he'd say. "Different life. You look happy." I was. Sophie would study the photographs, trying to reconcile the smiling man on stage with the quiet, withdrawn father she knew. The father who spent most of his time in front of a computer screen. The father who never played music. The father who seemed like he was always carrying something heavy that she couldn't see. As Sophie got older, she started to understand. Her father wasn't just physically disabled. He was emotionally paralyzed, too. Stuck in the moment of that accident, unable to move forward. She wanted to help him. But how do you help someone heal when they don't want to be healed? Then came her 16th birthday. Sophie had been thinking about what she wanted for weeks. Her friends were getting cars and expensive clothes and big parties, but Sophie didn't want any of that. She wanted something that no amount of money could buy. She wanted to hear her father play piano. Just once. Just so she could understand the part of him that existed before she was old enough to remember. The part of him that was buried under 15 years of grief and pain. On the morning of her birthday, she came to the kitchen where Elijah was making breakfast. He'd gotten pretty good at cooking from a wheelchair over the years. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," he said, turning with a pancake on a spatula. "Sweet 16. I can't believe it." "Thanks, Dad." "So," he said, flipping the pancake. "What do you want? I've been saving up. We could get you that laptop you wanted. Or maybe some new clothes. I know I'm not great with fashion, but I could take you to the mall, and you could pick out whatever you want." Sophie sat down at the table. She'd rehearsed this moment in her head, but now that it was here, her courage wavered. "I don't want any of that," she said quietly. Elijah turned to look at her. "No. Then what?" Sophie took a deep breath. "I want to hear you play piano." The spatula clattered into the sink. Elijah's hands gripped the wheels of his chair. "Sophie, just once." "Dad, just one song. That's all I want." "Baby, I can't." "Why not?" "Your hands still work. The piano's right there. It's not that simple." "Then explain it to me," Sophie said, and her voice cracked. "Explain why you won't do this one thing. This one thing that would make me happy." Elijah felt something break inside him. He wanted to explain. He wanted to tell her that every time he looked at that piano, he saw Grace. He heard her voice. He felt the weight of everything he'd lost. He wanted to tell her that playing would be like opening a wound that had never really healed. But how do you explain that to your daughter on her birthday? I can't. Sophie, I'm sorry." Sophie's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. "It's okay, Dad." But it wasn't okay. Elijah could see that. She left the kitchen, and Elijah sat alone with the burning pancakes, feeling like he'd failed the one person he had left in the world. That night, after Sophie had gone to bed, Elijah sat in the living room, staring at the covered piano. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. He thought about Grace. He did that a lot, but tonight, it felt different. Tonight, the memories came flooding back with unusual clarity. He remembered the first time he'd played for her. They'd been dating for maybe 3 weeks. She'd come to his apartment and he'd been nervous. Actually, nervous. Him, a man who'd performed for thousands without breaking a sweat. "Play me something," she'd said, curling up on his couch. "Something just for me." He'd played Debussy's Clair de Lune. It was Grace's favorite. He'd learned that about her on their second date. When he finished, she had tears in her eyes. "That was beautiful," she whispered. "You're beautiful," he'd replied. He remembered their wedding. They'd had a small ceremony, just close friends and family. But afterward, Elijah had played at the reception, Grace had sung. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Someone requested a song, and Grace couldn't resist, and before they knew it, they were performing at their own wedding. Everyone had cried. His grandmother had said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever heard. He remembered the night Sophie was born. He'd been terrified. What if something went wrong? What if he wasn't a good father? Grace had held his hand in the delivery room. "We're going to be amazing parents," she'd said. "You know why? Because we know how to create beautiful things together." And they had. Sophie was the most beautiful thing they'd ever created. But the memory that hit Elijah hardest tonight was from the night of the accident, backstage before they'd left the venue. Grace had been excited about something. "I've been thinking," she'd said, fixing his tie. "Sophie's getting old enough to start learning music. What if we started teaching her piano, both of us? We could make it fun. Make it something we do together as a family." "I'd love that," Elijah had said. "You, me, and Sophie at the piano. Our own little concert hall." "Promise me," Grace had said, suddenly serious. She did that sometimes. Got serious out of nowhere, like she knew something he didn't. "Promise me that no matter what happens, you'll teach her to love music. Promise me you won't let it die. Why would anything happen? Just promise me, Eli." "I promise," he'd said, kissing her forehead. "I promise." Sitting in his living room. 15 years later, Elijah realized he'd broken that promise. He'd let the music die. He'd let that part of himself and Grace die because it hurt too much to keep it alive. But Sophie wanted to hear him play. His daughter, on her 16th birthday, had asked for one thing, and he'd said no. What would Grace say about that? He knew what she'd say. He could hear her voice as clearly as if she were sitting right beside him. "Music isn't in your legs, Eli. It never was. It's in your soul. It's in your heart. It's in your hands. And those haven't changed." She'd said that to him once, years before the accident. He'd been discouraged about something, some performance that hadn't gone as well as he'd hoped. Grace had put her hands on his face and looked him dead in the eyes. "The music is in you," she'd said. "It always will be. Nobody can take that away. Not critics, not bad nights, not anything." But she'd been wrong. Something had taken it away. The accident. The grief. The fear. Or had it? Elijah rolled his wheelchair closer to the piano. His hand reached out and touched the cloth covering it. Dust came away on his fingers. 15 years of dust. "I don't know if I can do this," he whispered to the empty room. To Grace. To himself. But he thought about Sophie's face that morning. the hope in her eyes, the disappointment when he'd said no. He thought about Grace's voice, "Promise me you won't let it die." And he thought about his grandmother. Gifts aren't just for keeping. They're for sharing. Maybe it was time to share again. Elijah didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. Something had shifted inside him. A door he'd locked years ago had cracked open just slightly, and he couldn't ignore it anymore. At 3 a.m, he rolled his wheelchair into the living room. The apartment was dark, except for the streetlight filtering through the window. He could hear Sophie sleeping in her room, the soft sound of her breathing. He sat in front of the piano for a long time, just staring at the cloth covering it. "This is crazy," he muttered. "You haven't played in 15 years. You don't even know if you still can." But his hands knew. Even after all this time, his hands remembered. Finally, he reached out and pulled the cloth off. The piano underneath was beautiful. A Steinway grand worth more than 2 years of his current salary. The black lacquer had dulled over the years, and dust had settled in the crevices, but it was still magnificent. Still waiting. Elijah adjusted his wheelchair, positioning it at the right height and angle. That was the first challenge. He'd always played standing or sitting on a bench he could adjust. The wheelchair was different. Fixed. Lower. He had to figure out the right distance, the right posture. It took several attempts. He'd roll too close and his arms would be cramped. Too far and he couldn't reach properly. But finally, he found the right position. His hands hovered over the keys. They were shaking. Whether from fear or anticipation, he couldn't tell. Just one note, he told himself. Just press one note and see what happens. He pressed middle C. The sound that came out was pure and clear and absolutely heartbreaking. It echoed in the small apartment, filling the space with possibility. Elijah let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." He pressed another note, then another. A simple scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. His muscle memory kicked in before his brain caught up. His fingers moved on their own like they'd been waiting for this moment. Like they'd never forgotten even when he'd tried so hard to make them forget. He tried a chord, then another. His left hand found the bass notes, while his right hand danced over the melody. It was rough. Very rough. His fingers stumbled. He hit wrong notes. His timing was off. His hands cramped after just a few minutes. But he was playing. For the first time in 15 years, music was flowing from his fingertips. And then the memories came crashing in like a wave. Grace's voice singing while he played. Sophie as a baby giggling at the sound of the piano. His grandmother sleeping in the back of concert halls. The feel of a standing ovation, hundreds of people on their feet. The joy. The pure, uncomplicated joy of creating something beautiful. But also the pain. The loss. The empty space beside him, where Grace used to sit. The career that vanished. The life that ended. Elijah's hands faltered. He stopped playing. His shoulders shook as 15 years of suppressed grief came pouring out. He cried silently, his forehead pressed against his hands on the keys. "I miss you," he whispered. "God, Grace, I miss you so much." He sat there for a long time, crying in the dark. But something was different now. The grief didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a release. After a while, he lifted his head. His eyes were red, but something in them had changed. Something had awakened. He placed his hands back on the keys, and he started to play again. Over the next 2 weeks, Elijah developed a routine. During the day, he was the same father Sophie had always known. Quiet, withdrawn, going through the motions. But at night, after Sophie went to bed, he transformed. He'd roll to the piano and play. It wasn't easy. His body protested the new demands. Sitting in a wheelchair for extended periods while playing created pain in his lower back and shoulders. His neck would ache from the angle. His hands would cramp after 30 minutes. He was out of shape, musically speaking, like an athlete who'd been away from training for years. But he pushed through. He started with simple pieces, children's songs, basic exercises, the kind of things he used to teach beginners. His fingers were stiff, unpracticed. But slowly, night by night, they loosened up, remembered, came back to life. After a few nights, he attempted something more complex, one of Bach's preludes. He'd performed it hundreds of times in his previous life. Now he stumbled through it like a beginner. But he finished it. And the next night he played it better. The physical challenges were real. He had to completely relearn how to play from a seated position in a wheelchair. The mechanics were different. The reach was different. He couldn't use a sustain pedal the way he used to. He had to adapt everything. But Elijah was discovering something remarkable. Playing the piano didn't require his legs. It never had. All it required was his hands, his mind, and his heart. And those things, despite everything, were still intact. One night, around 2 a.m, he was working through Chopin when he heard a noise. A creak in the hallway. He stopped playing immediately. His heart raced. Was Sophie awake? He held his breath, listening. But there was nothing. Just the building settling, an upstairs neighbor, something. He didn't know that Sophie was indeed awake, standing in the hallway in her pajamas, listening. She'd been woken by the music several nights now. At first, she'd thought she was dreaming. But tonight, she'd gotten up to investigate. Now she stood there, tears streaming down her face, listening to her father play. The music was beautiful. Imperfect, but beautiful. She could hear the emotion in it, the pain, the hope, the love. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. And when the music stopped, she crept back to her room, her heart full. The next morning, Sophie came to breakfast with red eyes. Elijah noticed, but didn't say anything. Teenagers didn't sleep well, he knew that. But when she hugged him that morning, she held on a little longer than usual. "I love you, Dad," she said. "I love you too, sweetheart." If Elijah had known she'd heard him play, he might have been embarrassed, or maybe relieved. But he didn't know, so he kept his secret. Meanwhile, in the apartment next door, an older woman named Mrs. Henderson had been losing sleep. The piano music was coming through the walls. At first, she'd been annoyed. Who plays piano at 2 a.m? But as the nights went on, she found herself looking forward to it. The music was beautiful, even in its imperfection. It reminded her of her late husband, who'd loved classical music. One evening, she knocked on Elijah's door. Sophie answered. "Is your father home, Dad?" Sophie called. Elijah rolled to the door, immediately apologetic. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm so sorry if I've been disturbing you." I didn't realize the sound carried through the walls. But Mrs. Henderson was smiling. "Disturbing? No. I came to thank you. That music, it's beautiful. My husband, he passed 3 years ago, and he loved piano music. Hearing you play, it's like having a piece of him back. Please don't stop." Elijah was speechless. "You're very talented," Mrs. Henderson continued. "Have you ever thought about performing the community center a few blocks over? They do open mic nights, talent shows, that sort of thing." You should sign up." "Oh, I don't think." "Think about it," she said with a wink. Then she was gone. Sophie closed the door and turned to her father. "You've been playing," she said quietly. "At night. I've heard you." Elijah's face flushed. I wanted to surprise you for your birthday. I know I said no, but I've been practicing. I'm not ready yet, but I'm trying." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," Elijah said. "You were right. You deserved better than no. So I'm going to give you what you asked for. I'm going to play for you. But I want to do it right. I want to do it somewhere special." "What do you mean?" Elijah took a deep breath. He'd been thinking about this for days, and Mrs. Henderson's comment had solidified it. "I'm going to perform at the community center, a real performance, and I want you to be there. That's your birthday present. Not just me playing in our living room, but me playing for real, like I used to, like your mother would have wanted." Sophie couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Are you serious?" "I'm terrified," Elijah admitted. "I haven't performed in 15 years. I don't know if I still can. But I want to try. For you. For your mom. For me." Sophie hugged him tight. "Mom would be so proud of you." "I hope so," Elijah whispered. "I really hope so." The next morning, Elijah called the community center. His hands shook as he dialed the number. This felt real now. Too real. A cheerful voice answered. "West Philadelphia Community Center. This is Jennifer speaking." "Hi, Elijah," said his voice cracking slightly. "I heard you host performance events. Open mic nights we do every other Friday. Anyone can sign up. Are you interested in performing? Yes, maybe. I play piano." "Oh, wonderful. We actually have a piano on stage. Not the best quality, but it works. What's your name?" "Elijah. Elijah Brooks." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Elijah Brooks. The Elijah Brooks. Elijah's stomach dropped. "You know who I am. Are you kidding? My mother had all your albums. She played them constantly when I was growing up. I just assumed you'd... Well, I heard about the accident. I'm so sorry. We all thought you'd retired." "I did retire," Elijah said quietly. "But I'm thinking about playing again. Just once. Maybe. Just once," Jennifer sounded almost offended. "Mr. Brooks, if you want to perform here, we'd be honored. Absolutely honored. When were you thinking next Friday done? Consider yourself booked. And Mr. Brooks, I can't wait to hear you play." After he hung up, Elijah sat very still. His heart was pounding. What had he just done? He'd committed to performing. Actually performing. In front of people. The fear hit him like a physical thing. What if he couldn't do it? What if his hands failed him? What if he had a panic attack on stage? What if people laughed or pitied him? But beneath the fear was something else. Something he hadn't felt in 15 years. Excitement. The week before the performance was intense. Elijah practiced every day now, not just at night. Sophie would come home from school and find him at the piano. She'd do her homework to the sound of Beethoven and Chopin and Debussy. "You're getting really good, Dad," she'd say. "I'm getting there," he'd reply. "Still a long way to go." But the truth was the music was coming back faster than he'd dared to hope. His hands remembered. His heart remembered. And every time he played, he felt a little more like himself. Like the person he'd been before the accident. Before the grief had locked him away. He decided on his piece, Clair de Lune by Debussy. Grace's favorite. It felt right. Like bringing her into the room with him. Like keeping his promise to her. But doubt crept in, especially at night. He'd lie awake thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. He'd forgotten how to perform, how to connect with an audience, how to be vulnerable in front of strangers. And there was the wheelchair. He couldn't escape it. Would people focus on his playing or on his disability? Would they see him as a pianist or as an object of pity? One evening, 3 days before the performance, Elijah had a small breakdown. He'd been practicing for hours, and nothing was going right. His hands were cramping, and he kept hitting wrong notes. The music sounded hollow and mechanical. "I can't do this," he said, slamming his hands on the keys in frustration. Sophie looked up from her homework. "Dad, I can't do this, Sophie. I'm fooling myself. I'm not a pianist anymore. I'm just a guy in a wheelchair pretending to be something he used to be." Sophie put down her pencil and rolled over to him. She put her hands on his. "You want to know what I think," she said. "I think you're the bravest person I know. You lost everything. Mom, your career, your ability to walk. And you still got up every day and took care of me. You still made sure I had everything I needed. You still loved me, even when it hurt to love anything." "Sophie." "I'm not done," she said, and there was steel in her voice. Grace's steel. "Now you're doing something even braver. You're trying again. You're risking failure. You're putting yourself out there. That's not pretending, Dad. That's real. That's the realest thing I've ever seen." Elijah's eyes filled with tears. "What if I fail? Then you fail. So what? At least you tried. At least you didn't let fear win." She hugged him, and Elijah held on to his daughter like she was the only solid thing in a spinning world. "When did you get so wise?" he asked. "I learned from the best," she said. "Now play it again. And this time, don't think about being perfect. Just feel it." So Elijah played again. And this time he stopped trying to be perfect. He stopped trying to be who he used to be. He just played. Just let the music flow through him. And it was beautiful. Friday came too fast and too slow at the same time. Elijah woke up with his heart racing. This was it. Tonight, he'd be on stage for the first time in 15 years. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Sophie made him breakfast, reversing their usual roles. "You need to eat," she said. "Keep your strength up." "I can't eat. I'm too nervous." "Dad, eat." He managed a few bites of toast and some coffee. His hands were already shaking, and it was only 9 in the morning. The day crawled by. Elijah tried to distract himself with work, but he couldn't focus. He'd find himself staring at his computer screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard, mind completely blank. Around noon, his phone rang. It was Jennifer from the community center. "Mr. Brooks, I hope you don't mind, but word got out that you're performing tonight. We've had to move you to our main hall." The small performance space wasn't going to be big enough. Big enough for what? The crowd. "We're expecting over 200 people." Elijah's stomach dropped. 200 local news wants to cover it too. The story of Elijah Brooks returning to the stage after 15 years. It's inspiring, Mr. Brooks. People want to see this. After she hung up, Elijah sat very still. 200 people. News coverage. This wasn't a quiet comeback. This was public. This was real. "I'm going to be sick," he muttered. But there was no backing out now. He'd made a promise to Sophie, to himself, to Grace's memory. At 5 o'clock, Sophie came home from school. She'd been out with friends, giving her dad space to prepare. But now she was back, and she was dressed up. A nice dress. Her hair done. "You look beautiful," Elijah said. "You look terrified," she replied. "It's okay to be scared, Dad." "I'm beyond scared. I'm petrified." "Good," Sophie said. "That means it matters. If you weren't scared, it wouldn't mean anything." They ordered pizza for dinner, but neither of them ate much. At 6:30, they left for the community center. The performance was scheduled for 8, but Elijah wanted to get there early, get a feel for the space, practice on the actual piano he'd be using. The community center was bustling when they arrived. People were setting up chairs in the main hall. Someone was testing microphones. And there on the stage was a piano. It wasn't a Steinway. It was older, well-used. But it was a piano. "You must be Elijah," a man said, approaching with a wheelchair. He was in his 60s, gray-haired, wearing a community center staff shirt. "I'm David. I manage this place. It's an honor to have you here." "Thank you for having me," Elijah said. "Do you need anything?" "Water. A specific kind of chair. We can adjust the stage lighting if you need. Just some time alone with the piano," Elijah said. "If that's okay?" "Of course. Take all the time you need." Sophie squeezed his hand. "I'll be in the audience. You've got this, Dad." Elijah rolled onto the stage. The hall was empty now, chairs set up in neat rows. He positioned himself at the piano, adjusting his wheelchair to the right height and distance. He placed his hands on the keys and played a few notes. The piano was out of tune in a few places, but it would do. It would have to do. He closed his eyes and played through Clair de Lune once, then again, and again. Each time he felt Grace with him, could almost hear her voice, could almost feel her presence. "I'm doing this for you," he whispered to the empty hall. "I'm keeping my promise." At 7:30, people started arriving. Elijah could hear them from backstage where he'd retreated. The murmur of conversation, the scraping of chairs, the excited anticipation. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Jennifer poked her head backstage. "Mr. Brooks, we're about ready to start. How are you feeling? Like I might pass out?" She laughed. "That's normal. But I've seen you play. Remember through my mother's albums. You were born to do this. Just remember that." "That was a different person," Elijah said quietly. "No," Jennifer said firmly. "It was you. Just a different chapter. But it's still your story, Mr. Brooks. Now, go write the next part." At 8 o'clock sharp, the lights dimmed in the hall. Elijah sat backstage, listening to David welcome everyone. "Good evening, folks. Thank you all for coming to our community night. We have something very special for you tonight. 15 years ago, a tragic accident took away one of the greatest pianists of our generation. We thought we'd never hear him play again. But tonight, Elijah Brooks returns to the stage. Please give him a warm welcome." Applause erupted. Loud, sustained applause. Elijah took a deep breath. This was it. No turning back. He rolled himself toward the stage entrance. The curtain was pulled back. He could see the crowd now. Rows and rows of people, hundreds of faces, all looking at him. His heart hammered in his chest, his vision blurred at the edges. He couldn't do this. He couldn't. Then he saw Sophie. Front row center. She was smiling at him, tears already in her eyes. She mouthed 2 words. "I'm proud." Elijah locked eyes with his daughter, and in that moment the fear didn't disappear, but it became manageable, bearable. He rolled onto the stage. The applause grew louder. People stood. A standing ovation before he'd even played a note. Elijah didn't know what to do. He'd never experienced anything like this. Applause for showing up, for trying. for being brave enough to sit in front of a piano again. He raised a hand acknowledging the crowd. The applause continued for what felt like forever, but was probably only 30 seconds. Finally, it died down. People sat. The hall fell quiet. Elijah rolled to the piano, positioned himself. His hands found the keys. The silence was absolute. 200 people holding their breath. Elijah looked out at the audience one more time. He found Sophie, smiled at her, then he closed his eyes, and he began to play. The first notes of Clair de Lune floated into the silent hall. Soft, gentle, like moonlight on water. Elijah's hands moved across the keys with a grace that belied 15 years of absence. The muscle memory was there deeper than conscious thought. His fingers knew where to go, how to shape each phrase, how to bring out the melody while supporting it with delicate harmonies. But it was more than technical skill. Something else was happening. Elijah was playing with his whole heart. Every note carried weight. Every phrase told a story. The story of a man who'd lost everything. The story of love and grief and survival. The story of a father and daughter. The story of promises kept and broken and kept again. The music swelled and receded like waves. Moments of joy. Moments of sorrow. All woven together into something beautiful and heartbreaking. In the audience, people were transfixed. Some had tears streaming down their faces. Others sat with their mouths slightly open, completely absorbed. In the back row, Mrs. Henderson from Elijah's apartment building was crying openly, thinking of her late husband. In the front row, Sophie had her hands pressed to her mouth. She'd never heard her father play before. Not really. The late-night practice sessions were one thing. But this was different. This was her father's soul laid bare. This was the person he'd been before she was old enough to remember. And it was beautiful. As Elijah played, something shifted inside him. The grief was still there. The loss. The pain. But it wasn't everything anymore. There was also joy. Gratitude. Love. He thought about Grace. Not with despair, but with fondness. He remembered her laugh, her smile, the way she'd lean against him while he played, the way she'd believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. "I miss you," he thought, as his hands moved over the keys. "I'll always miss you. But I'm okay now. We're okay. Sophie and me. You'd be so proud of her, Grace. She's everything you hoped she'd be." The music built toward the climax, the most emotionally intense part of the piece. Elijah's hands pressed into the keys with increasing intensity. He could feel his shoulders aching, his back protesting. But he didn't care. He was lost in the music now. The pain in his body was real, but so was the joy. So was the sense of coming home, of reclaiming a part of himself he thought was gone forever. As he played, tears began rolling down his face. He didn't try to stop them, didn't try to hide them. He just let them fall while his hands kept moving, kept creating beauty. The final section of the piece arrived. The resolution. The return to calm after the emotional storm. Elijah played it with such tenderness that several people in the audience let out small sobs. The last notes hung in the air. Soft, fading, like a whisper, like a prayer, like goodbye and hello at the same time. Elijah's hands lifted from the keys. Silence. For 5 full seconds, no one moved. No one breathed. Then someone started clapping. Just one person, Sophie, standing in the front row, tears streaming down her face, applauding her father. Then another person stood, and another, and another. Within seconds, the entire hall was on their feet. The applause was thunderous, overwhelming. People were cheering, crying. Some were calling out words of encouragement. Beautiful. Incredible. Welcome back. Elijah sat at the piano, stunned. He looked out at the sea of standing people, all of them applauding him. Not out of pity, not because he was disabled, but because what he'd just created was genuinely, undeniably beautiful. He'd done it. After 15 years. After losing everything. After thinking he'd never play again. He'd done it. Sophie rushed onto the stage and threw her arms around him. "Dad," she sobbed into his shoulder. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." Elijah held his daughter tight. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," he whispered. The applause continued for 3 full minutes. 3 minutes of validation, of recognition, of welcome. When it finally died down, David came onto the stage with a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, Elijah Brooks, how about another round of applause?" The crowd erupted again. "Mr. Brooks," David said on behalf of everyone here. "Thank you. That was truly special. Would you like to say anything to the audience?" Elijah accepted the microphone with shaking hands. He looked out at all the faces, all the people who'd come to witness his return. He started, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat. "I didn't know if I could do this. I didn't know if I should. For 15 years, I thought music was part of my past, something I'd lost along with everything else." He paused, collecting himself. "But my daughter reminded me that some things can't be lost. They can be buried, hidden, forgotten for a while. But they're always there, waiting for us to be brave enough to reach for them again." Sophie squeezed his shoulder. "Tonight wasn't just about playing piano," Elijah continued. "It was about remembering who I am, who I was, who I can still be. It was about keeping a promise to someone I lost, and making a new promise to someone I love more than anything." He looked at Sophie. "Thank you, sweetheart, for not giving up on me, for reminding me that it's never too late." The audience applauded again, softer this time, but no less genuine. And to anyone out there who thinks they've lost something forever, Elijah said, his voice growing stronger, "Whether it's a talent or a dream or a part of yourself, I want you to know it's still there. It's always there. You just have to be brave enough to reach for it." He handed the microphone back to David. The applause started again, but Elijah barely heard it. He was looking at Sophie, who was crying and smiling at the same time. "I love you, Dad," she said. "I love you too, baby girl. Happy birthday." The aftermath of the performance was overwhelming in the best possible way. People lined up to speak with Elijah. Some were old fans who'd followed his career years ago. Some were strangers who'd just been moved by the performance. Some were musicians themselves, wanting to share their own stories of loss and rediscovery. An elderly black man in a veteran's cap approached. He had tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he said simply. "I lost my legs in Vietnam 50 years ago, and for 50 years I've been telling myself I can't do the things I used to love. But watching you tonight, maybe I was wrong. Maybe it's not too late for me either." Elijah shook his hand. "It's never too late," he said. And for the first time, he truly believed it. A woman in her 30s approached, holding a little girl's hand. "This is Emma," she said. "She's 6. She has cerebral palsy. She loves music, but the doctors say she'll never be able to play an instrument." The little girl looked up at Elijah with wide eyes. "What do you think the mother asked?" Is there a way Elijah looked at this little girl, at her eager face, and he saw Sophie. He saw himself. He saw everyone who'd ever been told they couldn't. "There's always a way," he said to Emma. "It might look different than how other people do it, but that's okay. Different doesn't mean impossible." The little girl beamed. A man in an expensive suit approached. He handed Elijah a business card. "Marcus Chen, executive producer at Philadelphia Sound Studios. I'd love to talk to you about recording, about touring, about getting you back in the world." Elijah looked at the card. A year ago, even a month ago, he would have said no immediately, would have retreated back into his safe, small life. But tonight had changed something. "I'll think about it," he said. And he meant it. As the crowd thinned out, Jennifer from the community center approached. "Mr. Brooks, I hope this isn't too forward, but we'd love to have you back. Regular performances. Maybe teaching some classes. We have a lot of young people in this neighborhood who could benefit from learning from someone like you." Teaching. Elijah hadn't thought about teaching in years, but the idea planted itself in his mind. Sharing what he knew, helping others find their voice. Keeping Grace's philosophy alive, gifts aren't just for keeping, they're for sharing. "I'd like that," he said. "Let's talk about it." By the time the hall emptied, it was nearly 11. Sophie and Elijah were the last ones there, along with David, who was locking up. "Thank you, Elijah," said to David, "for taking a chance on me." "No," David said. "Thank you. In 20 years of running this place, tonight was the most special thing I've ever witnessed. You gave these people hope, Mr. Brooks. That's worth more than any performance." In the car on the way home, Sophie was quiet. Elijah glanced over at her. "You okay, sweetheart?" "I'm more than okay," she said. "Dad, tonight was... I don't even have words. Seeing you up there. Seeing you come alive like that. It was like meeting a part of you I never knew existed." "That part of me was buried for a long time," Elijah said. "But it wasn't dead," Sophie said. "That's what I realized. You can bury something, but if it's real, if it's part of who you are, it never really dies. It just waits." Elijah felt his throat tighten. His daughter understood. She really understood. When they got home, the apartment felt different. The piano in the corner was no longer a ghost. It was an instrument, a tool, a friend. Before going to bed, Sophie hugged her father one more time. "Best birthday present ever," she said. "I should have done it sooner," Elijah replied. "No," Sophie said firmly. "It happened exactly when it was supposed to. You weren't ready before, but you are now." After Sophie went to bed, Elijah sat at the piano one more time. He played softly, not wanting to wake anyone. Just a few notes, a simple melody. He thought about Grace, about how proud she would be, about how this was, in a way, keeping his promise to her. Teaching Sophie to love music. Not through direct lessons, but through example. Through showing her that passion and talent don't die. They just wait for us to be ready. "I did it," he whispered to Grace's memory. "I came back, I played, and it was beautiful." He could almost hear her reply, "I never doubted you would." In the weeks and months that followed that performance, Elijah's life transformed. He recorded an album. Not a full comeback tour or anything overwhelming, just a small, intimate album of his favorite pieces. The sales were modest, but the impact was significant. His story spread. People shared it online. News outlets picked it up. But more importantly, Elijah started teaching. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he'd go to the community center and teach piano to kids. Some were disabled, some weren't. All of them benefited from learning from someone who understood that the path to music isn't always straight, that sometimes it winds through darkness, but it always leads somewhere beautiful. Sophie started learning piano too, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She wanted to share that connection with her father, that language they could speak together. And every Sunday in their small apartment, they'd play together. Father and daughter, creating new memories, new music. The piano that had been covered for 15 years was now the center of their home, the heart of their life together. Elijah never forgot what it felt like to be paralyzed. Not just physically, but emotionally. To believe that who you were is gone forever. But he also never forgot what it felt like to play again, to reclaim yourself, to find that the things you thought were lost were just waiting for the right moment to return. If Elijah's story touched you, if it reminded you of something you've been too afraid to reach for, then I hope you'll remember his words. It's never too late. Maybe you have a talent you've buried. Maybe you have a dream you've abandoned. Maybe you have a part of yourself you think is gone forever. But it's not gone. It's just waiting for you to be brave enough to try again. Elijah Brooks found his way back to the piano. What will you find your way back to? If stories like this inspire you, if they remind you of what's possible when we refuse to give up, then please subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell, because there are thousands of stories like Elijah's out there. Stories of people who lost everything and found themselves again. Stories of courage, of redemption, of second chances. And remember, your limitations are only as real as you make them. Your gifts are still there waiting. All you have to do is reach. Thank you for listening to Elijah's story. Now go write yours.